This is Find Your Voice, a podcast created for music educators who believe that teaching music is about more than notes on a page. Each episode, we'll talk with educators, leaders, and musicians who are shaping the future of music learning, one voice at a time. Whether you're conducting a choir, leading a band, or teaching little ones their very first notes, this is your space to connect, learn, and be inspired. Find Your Voice is sponsored in part by Dr. Mom Music and Central College. How much fun can two music teachers have? My middle schooler would like that. She's like all about it.
Every night.
It's so fun,
Yeah.
right? The nails.
Then you get like the fidgets.
Oh, yes.
Or the tack, like the slime.
Yes, and like the crinkle paper.
Yeah.
Everything. Well, hello there. We are on Find Your Voice with Dr. Mom Music, and I am so excited. We have Mr. Chase Shoemaker here with us. Did I say that right?
Shoemaker, we make them.
Shoemaker,
we
you
don't
make
mock
them. Yes,
Yeah.
I did say that right. I am so excited to have my friend here. He came all the way from the metropolis of Des Moines down to this little town of Pella. And you came down in the winter time. Usually you're here in the summer.
That is true. Yep, for the ICDA symposium.
Yeah. Does it look very different?
You know, if we had snow, it would. But right now, it's pretty clear. I even rolled my windows down because it's like a balmy 41. So it still feels like spring to me.
Yeah. Well, I like that the sun is still out and it was a nice day.
It was great.
Yeah. So we are here and I asked Chase to come down today because we're talking about music education and music educators specifically. Something that I've become more interested in recently because I had a diagnosis last fall. As many middle-aged, ew, that sounds so disgusting, middle-aged.
Claim it.
I know, right? Middle-aged women, actually, I'll find the statistic and throw it in as I'm editing. Middle-aged ladies find that as they are working with their own kiddos, they themselves have ADHD. And many people are not diagnosed until their adulthood because they are, type A, perfectionist, they work hard, they've gone through their whole education system and they've just to everything. Does that story sound familiar at all to you?
It is the norm. And you know, everyone goes through challenges and struggles. So you just think, oh, that's just a normal aspect of what it means to be a student, a music educator. And then all of a sudden you start sharing stories and they're like, that's different.
Yeah.
A very similar story, not that I am a middle-aged woman, but a very similar story in terms of seeing early signs in elementary and then not really going through a diagnosis. At that point, you didn't want to be diagnosed because it could alter what opportunities you received in your education or what people thought at that time. And so you kind of skip that diagnosis, and it's not until you get older where you're coping. And then all of a sudden it just becomes so hard that you realize there has to be another answer for it. And so then, like for myself, I'm 31 and at 29 was when I finally had a therapist who was like, you have ADHD.
Wow.
Yeah, huge.
Wow.
And we did like all of the testing and it was just like every single thing that went down. You're just like, well, yeah. And in my head, I was laughing because I was like, but that's just what it means to be a choir director in the state of Iowa. Like, with all of the challenges and being overstimulated and having to plan and being brain fogged because you're exhausted.
Yeah.
Very similar in terms of the late diagnosis aspect of it.
Right. Brain fog was huge. That was a huge red flag for me.
because I would stand in front of my class and just lose words all the time, and I thought it was menopause.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. I totally blamed it on menopause.
I never had any issue when I was in front of people. My ADHD is based in hyper focus and then hyperactivity. You give me a task to do, I will do it for hours and not realize that all of a sudden we've been here, for 4 hours, or all of a sudden it's 2 a.m. and you're like, how did I get to this point?
Right.
In front of kids, it was always like, I'm on. Like the Energizer Bunny.
Right.
You're literally being energized by a motor.
Sure.
But for me, it was office work. It was getting to school in the morning. I would get in front of my computer and know I need to get through these emails before I start lessons. There was one morning in particular where it wasn't even brain fog. It was kind of like when a plane goes through the clouds and all of a sudden it gets above them, and it was just mental clarity, but I couldn't think of anything. I could even try to think about something and it was just blank. So it wasn't like I was in a fog, but I was like, my brain is off and I don't even know what's going on. I just thought I was exhausted and that like my brain just was like, you need rest. But it was just right at the beginning of show choir season, hosting a competition and getting set up for the Pops concert, and also doing the lessons to prep students for solo and small ensemble because those signups had just come out. I thought all of these things going on at the same time left me in a mental paralysis, but turns out all of those things are signs of ADHD, like in a big way.
Right. So tell me, you were teaching in high school when you had that diagnosis. Did you tell your students?
I was always open to my students about mental health. And so in college, my junior year had been going through my studies. And at that point, I was doing chorus master for Simpson College's opera program. And I was still doing roles. So kind of doing 2 for 1. And then you're prepping for recitals. You're going through harder coursework. I was a teacher's assistant for our music history course for medieval Renaissance music. It's quite a challenging course at Simpson College.
Sure, I can imagine. We had Dr. Larson.
Kids would get sent to the mental health institute because of that class. But it was all these wonderful things, and I had taken composition for 3 years and was still working really hard on those. And then started like the tutoring program for music theory while I was there, which hadn't been offered previously through the library resource office. It was all of these things where I was like, I can do it all. I'm good at all this. I just need to manage time. And then it got to a panic attack that lasted like 2 full weeks, like full-blown symptoms. Thought I'd have to drop out of school, and it happened over Christmas break because that's the time where you finally get to relax and you're not going, you don't have something to keep your attention on it.
Right.
So then my hyperactivity stepped in, and I wanted to go do instead of just sit and relax. And that always kind of happens to me over Christmas break, or any break, which summers for teachers can be really challenging. But I had thought it was just anxiety and depression. And so that's how my GP treated it, in terms of medication to help with that nervous system symptom. And so then it was still that in terms of my time in Harlan and Portland State University for my master's, then in Bettendorf, where up to that point it was all, okay, how do I manage my anxiety and my depression and my panic disorder? I was always upfront with my students about my own lived experiences. For so many of our students, they're dealing with that on a regular basis. Absolutely. If I was having an off day, I would start class with, hey, y'all, just wanted to make sure you knew I'm just having a weird day today and I'm going to need some help to make sure that we can keep today's class on point. But it was more along the sides of the mental health aspect rather than like, I have ADHD, and so here are some things you should know about that in terms of the way that I go about a rehearsal or have to deal with emails or like if you tell me something, if you don't write it down and give it to me or send me an email, which is usually what I would tell them to do, like it's going to get lost because those are my coping mechanisms that you kind of figure out for yourself along the way.
And did you do that before you had a diagnosis?
Oh, way before.
Yeah.
Because you have to.
You've
got to
to
manage, right?
Yeah.
And of course, this is the same thing. It's like you talk to any other chorus director to the secondary high school level, and it's that same thing of you need to be organized. And in these busy seasons, you find your own tools to help you, which is normal for every other person, but it's the added effect of the symptoms, the physical, but also the mental. And so it's that added aspect. It's like, oh, you're not experiencing that really was the telltale sign. Oh, there's something outside of this besides just the anxiety and depression that needs to be adjusted.
Right. So now that you can take that step back and go, okay, so I have this diagnosis. Can you think of times in your life where you wish you would have known? Or can you think of specific times where you're like, oh, that was the ADHD?
Yeah.
You mentioned, a lot of times we blame, even doctors will say, oh, that's anxiety. And I think that there is an anxiety epidemic. And there is a lot of anxiety, right? Just in general. Like if we scroll through the news, that creates a lot of anxiety. There's a lot going on in our world. Hello. But even like me looking through my life, there are times where I'm like, was that anxiety or was that ADHD? Like, do you know what I'm trying to...
Oh, completely. Because it's like the aspect of there are reasons your body goes into fight or flight because you are being attacked. That's a reasonable response. The issue is when you're not and you're still going through fight or flight. For me, that's what it felt like.
Why does this sound exactly like me? Did I just clone myself at a coffee shop? Okay, this is my 11 Labs voice, Emmy. She does podcasts, ads, audiobooks, basically everything I'm too tired to record. Search Emmy on 11 Labs because apparently Emmy is officially for hire.
In terms of the hyperactivity, if I'm having to sit here and try to focus, I had to do other things. And I knew of other students in my school when I was in elementary and middle school. I had started taking piano lessons in 3rd grade. My grades were never great in elementary. Middle school, they got a little bit better. By the time I was in high school, I was on honor roll every single semester.
Yeah.
And even like leaving 8th grade, all my friends were recommended to go on to honors. I was not. I got there my freshman year, and after a month, my teacher, like I was already done with my homework assignment that she would assign for the next day. I was already done with that in class. And so she came up and she's like, do you want to do honors? You should be in honors.
Yeah.
And I went, no, I'm okay. I don't want to do that. I'd rather do music, But like in middle school, the telltale sign of like, oh, that was ADHD. I wasn't given fidgets because I was high functioning, so it wasn't like I could still get through my day-to-day. I had learned how to cope with certain things. I had 2 older siblings, so you're getting used to certain ways of going about your day-to-day life. I was always hyperactive, like as an elementary student. My brother was in baseball, and when we were at his games, he would be playing, and I would see this audience in front of me, and I would start singing to them, and then I would run, and then come back and just go crazy. And like when I was in theater productions, they would require my dad to be part of the production because I was too much to like control. Which like still am.
Well.
But it was all these things where I was like, I just thought I was a crazy kid. Like kids are kids,
Yeah.
And then in middle school, my grades were starting to improve, but I found myself doing fingering patterns on my desk.
Oh, like piano.
Like piano.
Yeah.
And so it was like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then it was 1, 3, 2, 4, 5, 3, and then it was kind of going in third, and then in a rhythmic sequence. And it was always the same. And in my head, it was always that same one. And I still, like on my drive here, I'm going, and so it's like these little tics or You know, like you're fidgety and you're just needing to get it out. And then it was also the combined aspect of, with as much music as I was fortunate to have parents who put me in piano and voice lessons and show choir and afforded all those opportunities, that's what I fixated on. I would compose in my head when I was in middle school. I would just come up with songs.
Sure. Yeah.
And so it was that where, again, it's like I'm hyper focused on it. I'm hyper active. I just want to move my body. Classwork became difficult because once I coped, I didn't learn about ADHD at that point. But when I would study, I would learn different ways of studying, or like my brain was able to wrap around the concepts, but it wasn't necessarily the way that my teachers wanted me to wrap around them. In algebra, it's not that you're getting the right answer to the equation, it's that you are going through these steps, and they want you to show your work so that they can see that you're going through the right steps. I was terrible at the steps, but I got the right answer. And so I knew what I was doing was right, but then my teacher would be like, but you're not doing the right steps to show it. Which, of course, pedagogically later on, you're thinking, okay, well, you need to do these steps because later on we're going to add something to that, and that's why we're teaching you this, not just the right answer. You know, but then you do all these worksheets that just say, make sure you get the right answer, show your work. That's where it was like, oh, that was more than likely an aspect of that. But, yeah, and then, like, teaching-wise, it was... I'm trying to think, like, I'm just going down the ideas of, like, have you ever felt like this? Where you're going off the checklists of, like, yes, everyone, right? And it starts adding up that, like, that's my day-to-day. You forget to eat lunch because you've got all of these tasks to do. You get home and you're so exhausted because your brain has gone on Energizer Bunny mode the entire day. You are, like, there's no energy to do anything else.
And yet you keep going.
Because you have to.
You have to. Yeah.
Because you've got All-State rehearsals that you've got to get back to school for. And you've got, now All-State's done, but show choir, choreography camp picks up.
And you forget about suppers.
So it becomes, how do you survive? And then you get to a break and you can finally relax. But then it kind of started clicking, understanding that my anxiety and my depression, the doctor was right in terms of understanding this is what your body's going through. But the question really was, why is your body doing that? So it was still helpful for me to go through the coping mechanisms of my symptoms, but I still wasn't addressing yet, why am I getting anxious? Why is this taking place? So it was still a helpful thing with medication or anxiety, depression, panic disorders, and different things. It wasn't until I actually sat down with a psychiatrist, and that only happened last year after I moved to Des Moines, where I was like, okay, my understanding is this is what I'm kind of going through. How does that change? You know, am I taking the right medication for what my brain needs? And, you know, with the goal being, now that I know this, what are the actual coping mechanisms I need to understand how the world isn't any different to any other human being, whether they have ADHD or not, but the way we experience it is different. What do I need to do to eventually even get off meds? Because meds are only used because you're supposed to fit into this, rather than say, well, if you just accept the way my brain works and understand that me doing that job is going to be different because my brain doesn't work from 8 to 10 a.m. If you're telling me I've got to be in office from 8 to 10, I'm going to do my best work for you from this time to this time and still get results. But that's not the way the world works.
Right.
You know?
Right. Yeah. It's so interesting, and just like, I don't know if it's been this way for you, but I've been listening to a lot of podcasts, believe it or not, and it's so invigorating, and sometimes I just sit there and bawl because it's like listening to other people talk about going through the same thing, right? It's so reassuring. You're not alone. And for me, it was the Vanderbilt assessment. I don't know what assessment you used with your psychiatrist.
Whatever they sent me in the
whatever. Yeah, right.
right?
Yeah. But I think that, you know, for those of you listening, if this sounds like something you are curious about, Google the Vanderbilt assessment, start reading it. There's more people than you would guess that have ADHD. It is genetic. there's nothing wrong with you. There's so many creative individuals and entrepreneurs. Made. I think that's something I've always known, that I crave autonomy. And my dissertation was on autonomy supportive teaching.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a whole different podcast I
made. It is. Yes, absolutely.
Sounds amazing.
Yes. But after finding out that I have ADHD, I'm like, well, no wonder why I crave autonomy. That makes total sense. I need to have that choice.
Yeah.
Right? Because many people that have ADHD make the best entrepreneurs.
That does not surprise me at all.
Yeah. I've been listening to Chris Croner. He has opened like 80 different businesses or something. He's like 30 something.
Adult ADHD often goes undiagnosed for years. Many adults are treated for anxiety or depression, while ADHD is never identified. In the U.S., about 6% of adults, over 15 million people, have an ADHD diagnosis, and experts believe millions more are undiagnosed. Symptoms can include chronic overwhelm, procrastination, time blindness, brain fog, and emotional reactivity. You may appear successful, but feel constantly exhausted. If this sounds familiar, talk with a doctor or mental health professional about adult ADHD. Understanding your brain can change everything. And the right diagnosis can be life-changing.
Like, for me, and you've probably already seen this in this podcast, once I get on a topic, I can talk for hours. People will have to stop me talking. Yeah. But to me, there's so many synaptic connections, but it's like tangents, right? That you go off on a tangent. Yeah. But like, my brain is wired in a way that, when recently I've been thinking about within choral classrooms, we set up the design of rehearsal mirroring what we see in society. And social structures, and what is allowed and what's not allowed.
Okay, let's go down that rabbit hole for just a minute. I'm curious.
For instance, this would be an example of like where I also find my ADHD coming in, is that the way that my brain connects things, I'm a very curious individual. Yeah. So I want to know about things that aren't related to music and dig into. And so when I have the study of music, I was doing like 24 credits a semester when I was at Simpson. You know, like the average is 12. Of course you were. Yes. You know, and I was like, I want to learn how to play organ. Let's add that.
Right? I'm learning right now during my sabbatical. Just because I can, right?
Crushing it. It's so much fun. Anywho, but all of these things come together where your brain just immediately goes to that, and then you try to synthesize everything. The entrepreneurship aspect to me is like, of course, when I was planning show choir competitions, I was thinking about every minute detail. When someone would say, have you thought of this? I was like, the reason that won't work is because this component, right? And they're like, oh. And I'm like, I can't stop. That's where all of a sudden it's 4 a.m. and I'm on my laptop going, I need to go to bed. But in terms of the music education aspect and coinciding with the way that we set up society, is like, what is the, like, it's kind of similar to like the different, like in fundamental of education, like in that course, you learn about all these different types of teaching. One that I have found is very helpful for students with ADHD is Montessori. As you are in charge of your own learning, and the teacher acts as a guide.
That's the autonomy supportive.
Based on your interest, right? And Amen. And that's how I run my vocal studio now. What do you want to learn? 2 days ago with a student, they were like, vibrato. What is it? I'm so curious. And we just sat down and I was like, here's the larynx. And if you look at the cricoarytenoid, you go through those little things. But like, I always viewed my purpose as a teacher is a guide.
Yes.
I'm not here to be like, you need to learn these things, here's the test. What are you interested in? Because how are you going to use that after school? 99% of my kids aren't going to go into music education or performance, but how do they interact with music after? And so, like, when I look at, I'm a choir director, teach choir, how do you set up your classroom? Is it set up in a way that you sit, you don't talk, you're not engaged with your phone? What is that aspect of the way you set up your space? And then what does that mean when they get out of high school? The expectation is that you are here to sit in your little space, right? And when I think about music, like, I was a choir kid. I was a music kid. Like, I was playing tuba, I was drum major, I was the accompanist for our choirs curricularly and for show choir. I was a dance captain. I was in community theater. I was a vocalist who wanted to be the next Adele. My interest wasn't in choir, my interest was in vocal music.
Right.
The expressivity of that. And so when I look at choir, I fundamentally believe everyone should be in choir because it's a perfect way of seeing society. Because you have your own individual voice.
Yeah.
You understand that your individual voice is really important. No matter what level you're at, right? You belong in the choir.
Absolutely.
And the beauty of choir is that we take all of these different voices, and while your voice is important, it's not as nearly as important as us trying to find balance and blend with the voices around us to try to make something that is more meaningful than what we could have done individually, right?
Beautiful.
The question becomes, like, what are we emphasizing to our choristers, right? And to especially our students that are learning, like, they come into your classroom. I don't want my class to look like a science classroom. I don't want my class to look like, and here are all the little things that you have to learn along the way, and these are the exact lessons. And like, standardized the aspect of, like, well, I want my class to look like theirs because they're an excellent music director. Yeah, they're an excellent music director. That works for them.
Right.
My brain don't work like theirs.
Yeah.
And the way I look at music when I'm reading it and it's coming off the page and I'm giggling to myself about how it's written, and like I was in a choir in the Quad Cities, and I was just giggling to myself, and the person next to me was like, "What?" And I'm like, "It's like text painting." If you look at the way it was written, the way it jumps off the page, I'm just focused on my vowel.
Right.
But it's hard because you have all of these students. Montessori is challenging because one teacher cannot sit in a room with 64 kids or 25 kids.
Right.
And especially in music, what are the ways that we best introduce them to that subject? But I do sometimes wonder about that. You know, then you get into the concepts of, like, what music are you teaching them?
Yeah.
And what do you prioritize as the most important? And that's a whole different conversation.
Yes, but it's an important one.
Correct. This is where, like, my brain goes when I just think about one little subject, but then I'm like, okay, but what if we pull this?
Yes.
And all of a sudden, 6 hours later, you're having coffee with someone and they're like, I need to go. I know, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
But it's so great. I love that idea. You need to write on that or do a presentation. I'm serious. I think that for maybe this summer, you should propose that. Or for IMEA.
Maybe.
That'd be great.
I mean, I've got eventually perhaps a doctorate, but there's just, this is the issue, is that there's so many interests, right? Like, how do you narrow it down to one thing? But then I also think, what's the point of a doctorate? I'm so glad you got one.
It depends on the end goal, right? If you need it for an end goal, then you need it. But if you don't, then you don't.
Because, I just always think, like...
Or if you just want to do it to fulfill your heart.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah. I just want to study and study and study and study.
But you can also do that watching a billion podcasts. I've been doing that all sabbatical. And honestly, I have learned a lot from Patty. Patty is my new assistant, ChatGPT. I call her Patty. She is my new assistant, and I tell you what, I have learned so much from her.
Well, starting points too, and then it also shows you the resource where they found it.
Yes.
Like, then you can actually, like, oh, I'm going to dig into that.
Oh my gosh.
Click the link.
AI is ridiculous.
I can't afford 34 doctorates.
No, but I'd like to. But Patty has 34 doctorates.
Probably more.
I know. It's just crazy. But if we don't embrace that, especially we as in collective music education, higher ed, we will become archaic. And I'm afraid that higher ed is very resistant to AI.
It's kind of like the science versus art.
Yes.
There's the aspect that we have the science behind music too, but it's also a humanity.
Yes.
And sometimes I look at AI and I think that's the science. It's just gathering all this information, but it doesn't have the humanity in it, which is the hard part of, like, can you think for yourself? Can you? I think AI is, like, if we're looking at higher order thinking, you know, knowledge comprehension, this evaluation, I think it does a good job of the first three. But when it comes to assessment,
Yeah.
synthesis, evaluation, the things that require our humans higher order thinking skills. That's where I feel like we need to embrace the aspects of AI that allow us to get into that. But then we also have to understand that it can't do the work for you. You then have to really work to understand it and to be able to synthesize that to actually make something of it.
You have to know enough to take the information you're given and apply it and utilize it. I was having this intellectual conversation with Patty one day about research that I'm very passionate about. And had I not known anything about that research, it would have been a null conversation. But because I know so much about it, it's so valuable.
Yeah.
I mean, I learned so much more because of what she was able to give me. It was incredible. It blew my mind. I'm just like, this, I felt like my grandpa when he first saw a computer. I was like...
Lesson plans.
Yeah.
It does amazing lesson plans. The challenge, though, is you actually have to know it.
You have to know enough,
it perfectly puts it and organizes for
Mm-hmm.
you, but then you have to be able to actually do the work to teach it.
You still have to know. Yeah. So our students can't just take that and regurgitate it.
Correct.
And that's the danger.
Do people have ADHD?
I know,
We
right?
just
I
got
was like,
into a
oh,
whole
that's a bit of a
topic.
tangent. I was like, oh, I think maybe we have ADHD in this space. Maybe just a little bit.
Yeah, just the space.
That's okay.
She's balancing kids, work, and aging parents. But today she's smiling because she just found familyandeldercare.com. Now, trusted help for her parents in one place. She can finally breathe again and keep walking forward with peace of mind. She doesn't have to make this walk alone. Familyandeldercare.com, a place to go for answers when you don't know where to begin. Supporting the sandwich generation.
Okay, I did have a question. When you were doing your undergrad for music ed, how much did you learn about ADHD for your students? Do you remember?
So, one of my favorite ed classes through Simpson was Exceptional Learners. And so it was a semester-long course that dove into students that don't come from your background. They had units on people of color, socioeconomic status. They had units on gender and gender expression, sexual orientation. And then they had a little bit about neurodivergence. Most of that did not focus necessarily on ADHD more than it did about other neurodivergencies.
Sure. Yeah.
And really kind of how to incorporate, at least when we went through it, it was also kind of self-guided of like, what are you teaching and how does this relate to who your students will be in your subject matter?
Oh, interesting.
So for me, that course on the neurodivergent part really came from what if you have students with special abilities? How do you incorporate and make sure that you have a course that allows any student to be successful with full integration rather than separate coursework?
That would be the same for me too. It's making me re-examine what I'm teaching for my students because they take children with exceptionalities, but then what am I doing with my music ed students in turn? So
yeah, definitely not from a music lens.
Right.
Well, and of course, so much is based on, you've got your music theory, your music history, you're conducting, right? But along those lines, it's kind of like, this is what we teach you in music, this is what we teach you in education. Maybe some of those crossover. Like you learn elementary methods, secondary methods. It was more about how do you set up, how do you lead an effective rehearsal, skill, work, and the application of all of those different ideas into what it actually means to teach it.
Right. I will be integrating. Yes.
It's very exciting.
I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet, but I will. I know, I have some time.
I'm expecting results by next week. I think things are hard or harder for people with ADHD, I think as a matter of perspective. Because I mean, I can't disagree with it. I've had a lot of challenges with trying to keep up, and I think the aspect that most teachers are already experiencing is the burnout. And I think that's whether you have ADHD or not, right?
Right.
And I
Very
think the
real.
challenge is that with a neurodivergency, whether you know about it or not, whether you're diagnosed or not, means that there are explanations for certain things, but even in the midst of that, the job itself is still very challenging.
Right.
And when we look at trying to be a music educator, when we have so many brilliant, phenomenal music educators in the state, the question becomes like, okay, this is where we're at. How do I get to this next level, right? When this is already brilliant and phenomenal. And so where are we at right now with the expectation of what it means to be good at your job? For me, music was always about being different and being an individual, not being a science. The science is a part of it. We have to know anatomy, we have to understand acoustics and music theory and the study of it. But like, I think we sometimes lose the heart of, at least when I was going through it, what I was really struggling with when I was teaching was I loved music, and I no longer felt the love because I was so focused on the assessments and things that pulled me away from making music with kids. I think with all my understanding of ADHD, when I have to do an assessment, I will figure this assessment out for 6 hours. Whereas another person might just say, it's fine to just do this. But my brain didn't let me give up on it because I was fixated on it. Not only creating this email to send out to the show choir parents about our next competition, but making sure every single I was dotted and every T was crossed, and that everything had to be perfect before I could get it sent out, meant that I was doing hours on hours of work that I should have been devoting to my relationships with students and building a love of music. Now, here's the challenge. I didn't feel like I was not doing that. I was also 110% doing that. I felt really good about my work there, but it meant that I was doing 250% of the job because I was overdoing it always. And so it's just that aspect of trying to find that balance is already hard enough, let alone if your brain is wired in a way that adds in some other challenges to it. And so to know that there are coping mechanisms, but also to know that you don't have to be that director or that director, right? What works for some doesn't work for all. And we make accommodations all the time for our students. But then we don't have any type of accommodation for teachers, where it's like, we understand that you teach in this different way. We're going to put you in this PLC that makes you do the same exact test. And, well, how do you teach it? You can still get those results, like algebra when I was in high school. I still got the result, but it may not have been the exact way that was like, well, this is standard practice. I don't think music's like that. I don't think art is like that.
No.
You know, I like walking into a museum and seeing impressionist art and then going in to another space and seeing classical. Like, there's beauty, and both are art. They're equally important, and they stand on their own 2 feet. When I look at the diversity of ways to look at educating within the state, to know that you don't have to teach in the same way as this person or this person, but what is it at the heart of what you view music as, and to also understand that your students may not view music in the same way as you do. So how do we still educate them if maybe our system doesn't perfectly align with theirs, right? And that's what I would always try to make sure that in a section I was working kinesthetic and art and visual. 3 main that I always try and, I'm sure there's others, but it's just that aspect of, I always thought, you know, we accommodate so much for our students, but I look at teachers that they're phenomenal, but then is the system allowing them to be their brilliant self, which can be hard when there's already a lot of burnout as well.
Absolutely. I think that giving that grace to yourself and giving that grace to your colleagues, not that comparison piece.
Right.
That's hard, but it's so needed.
Yeah.
And again, I really like that airplane analogy you talked about early on in the conversation. I've had that moment, and you just sit and you stare
and it's peaceful. It's a weird thing because it freaked me out, like when my brain just stopped working.
Yeah.
But when your brain is always going 180 miles an hour, when you're finally given, I'm completely relaxed. I have no thought at all. Mm-hmm. It was very scary.
Yeah.
Because I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
But it was also peaceful at the same time.
Before we wrap up today's episode, we close with a segment I call Pay It Forward, inspired by my most loved podcast, Amy Poehler's Good Hang. This is my favorite part of the show because instead of asking questions about our guest, someone else gets the final word. It's a moment to simply say thank you, to recognize the teachers, mentors, and advocates who keep music alive in our hearts and our communities. I want to say a special thank you to Chase for sharing your heart with us. You opened the door to normalizing so many aspects of life for our listeners that go unnoticed. Your zest for life is infectious, and you brighten every room you walk into. I'm so thankful to call you my friend and colleague. We are all wonderfully and beautifully made, and our super abilities make us each unique. You helped remind me that in our discussion. Thank you, friend. I loved getting to talk with you. A special shout out goes to another friend of ours. When I reached out to her, of course she said yes to my request. Her beautiful soul has some special words to share. Rachel Rogge, you get the final word today.
I was fortunate enough to meet Chase in 2004 when he was a fourth grader and I was a scared student teacher, and then become his teacher for 6th through 8th grade, and then again his junior and senior year of high school. So we've had many awesome, hilarious moments together. I know there are two things that come to mind when I think of him. Of course, music, but also helping. He's always been someone who's willing to go above and beyond to help other people. And that was evident in middle school, but also in high school when he would help kids prepare for Westwood Jubilation, when everybody had to have their solo ready. And he would not only find the music for kids, but do voice lessons with them and accompany for them and make them feel amazing. And that's something that I'll always remember about him, is being in the choir room at Heelan, helping other kids and encouraging them to do new things. And I remember his senior year when he told me he wanted to be a clinician. He didn't know how he wanted to major in music, what he wanted specifically, but he knew that he wanted to be a clinician, of course, because he wanted to help people. And so we had a talk about becoming a music teacher and then making a name for yourself. There was no question in my heart that he would do that for himself. And so times kind of came full circle when I had to call Chase to fill in for me to be a critique judge at a show choir invite. And I thought of that very moment in my office when he came in and told me, I want to be a clinician. And here we are, Chase. You've done it. And there's much more to come in your future. And I can't wait to watch it. Love you.